Those, yeah.
Hey guys, and welcome to Word on Wednesday. I am here with a very, very special guest and dear friend. Again, sorry we're late, but we are live in 3, 2, 1. Click on it. Oh, it's auto. Hey guys, welcome back to Word on Wednesday. Sorry for the technicals. We are running into all of them today. I'm telling you the nightmare it was to get live, but I'm so glad that we finally made it. We had to switch out some equipment. But thank you so much for your patience. Guys, hit the share button. First and foremost, important. There's a rumor that is circulating the internet that for every time you hit the share button, I don't know what happens this time. I think the rumor was that you find a wife a really good thing and obtain favor from God. And if you hit the like button, oh boy, I can't remember, was it Gabriel shows up? Something like that. Somebody told me, just try it, see what happens. WhatsApp it to your friends. It's going to be a really important sit down with my precious friend, Karl Lokko. Karl, let's have you on the set with us, my man.
Here we are.
We made it.
We have
made it.
It's been a long road.
It's been a long road. It's been a long road. But I feel like breathing out.
Yeah,
I feel like
do it.
just. Can we do that? Is that okay? Feel good?
I feel good.
You ready?
Ready.
So Karl,
Yeah.
how you doing?
I'm good, you know.
We had you on our church channel before.
Yeah.
And you blew our minds. And that video, people are like, we got to have Karl back, the man who God makes invisible. That's your new nickname. That's added to your cred. And so just tell us first and foremost, who is Karl Lokko?
Blimmin' heck. I mean, who is Karl Lokko? Karl Lokko is saved, and I mean that with a capital S-A-V-E-N-D.
Yeah.
And throw in the exclamation mark. You know, I've been saved from a lot.
Sure.
Karl Lokko is a entrepreneur, a speaker, a pastor, a husband, a father, a friend.
Wow.
Karl Lokko tries to be an example, a real example.
Mm-hmm.
So that real is where we highlight.
Yeah.
Because life is real.
Absolutely.
God is just as real.
Yeah.
So we're here for it.
Yeah. And so tell us where you had your start. Take us back to Karl Young to Karl now. Set the scene for us and bring us into who you were, because you weren't always this man you are today. And I think you haven't really done yourself a service. If I was to read your CV out to people, their mouths will be open, their eyes will be open. But you're a big deal.
We get busy. We stay.
Big deal.
6'5",
You're 6'5", taller than me. And I thought that, I never thought I'd meet someone who literally looks down on me.
Yeah.
Literally. He is the only one that knows I have gray hair. Nobody else knows because they can't see that high.
Because it's right at
it's right at the crown.
At the
But
dome.
he's it's not even an angle, it's like this. And so he knows the hairs on my head right here. And so Karl, big person, big personality, doing it for God. Were you always?
Oh, definitely not. I wasn't born again.
Okay.
For sure. But I've always had an intention to do what's right.
Okay.
And that can be dangerous, because the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Good intentions mean nothing unless you're
Yeah.
It's, for me personally, God intentions. But
So would you say all your intentions were pure?
do you know what? I mean, one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter.
Okay.
And on my side of the coin, previously, I was hallowed by my peers and my community as someone that stood for them. The definition of standing and how I stood, we can get into that.
Okay.
You know, but I always kind of saw myself as a liberator.
Okay.
Honestly, like, I mean, I say, and I've said it publicly and I'll say it again, when the country, nation, world, you know, acknowledges that my stint of gangsterism, when we were actually allegedly discharging offensive weaponry, that was actually where the protest began.
Right.
You know, it was more an expression of a need for help.
Okay, so when you let's talk about the allegedly
Yeah.
Carl before we talk
Allegedly.
about the real Carl. Allegedly, I like that. I'm going to use that. So allegedly, you were a member of a gang.
No, no. I mean,
Not
that's
just-
factual. We can say
Okay,
that.
we can
yeah.
say the facts. Okay,
Yeah,
good. So
sure.
you can say the allegedly because I like the word. Now I'm just going to say it for everything. So you were a member of a gang. That's how you started.
Yeah.
Not just but you rose to the top of the gang.
I mean, do you know what? I initially was homeless when it
Okay.
came to the gang realm. It's
Okay,
not
in the
literally
gang
homeless.
world, okay.
I mean, like, I had nowhere to call a home. No gang that was mine, no gang I was a part of.
Okay.
I was actually on the far end of the spectrum, the other end totally. In the cold, I was being victimized like regularly, you know.
by gang members.
By gang members.
And what would happen to you? Because I mean, some people watch Kidulthood, Adulthood,
Yeah, so they can put it
Their
together.
mindset is framed like mine. I'm a South Entonian, so I don't. My only idea of gangs is throwing chips at each other and sabotage
Yeah.
across the room. So I mean, you're legit gangster. Like.
You're not going to do that to me. You're not about to do that to me. I mean, listen, in terms of feeling the pressure of what was statistically the second worst estate in London at the time, Mansfield Estate, I mean, its orbit was that of you have to hide your pocket money. You know, you will be stopped for a bicycle if you had the privilege of owning one.
Sure.
From about the ages of about 12 to about 15, every time I got on a bike, I would taste blood. Not because there was blood in my mouth, but because of one situation where I was actually assaulted for the bicycle.
Okay.
You know, and I mean, just living with that trauma, you know, being robbed regularly. My brother, who was 4 years older than me, he was also being hounded. I would know by the knock on the door whether he was actually being pursued and whether I should walk to the door, jog, or run.
Right.
You know, so I mean, more often than not, it was run.
So they would literally show up at your house.
I mean, like, sometimes they would come to my house, come in under the guise of being friends, and I would feel pressurized to kind of let them in. And I thought they were my semi-friends. After all, we lived in the same area,
Right.
but technically they would leave with a PlayStation game or two. You know,
And was that
went
kind
there.
of just the environment that you were brought up in? Were you in an estate? Were you in a
council
So you were in
estate.
council
Yeah,
estates.
yeah.
And so gangsterism was around you.
Absolutely.
Even though you came from a regular family.
Regular household,
Mum
loving.
and dad loved you.
They don't use profanity, let alone break the law.
No cussing. Were they
Nothing.
Christians? I don't even know.
My mother actually was a Christian.
But your dad was just a righteous,
and then some,
moral man.
Yeah, but my father was, and then my father was, he was just kind of like a normal guy,
Interesting.
you know, but a citizen.
Yeah.
You know,
Hardworking.
Hardworking. I mean, laws-abiding, decent man. The first time I was actually, the second time I was assaulted, I was 12 years old at the time as well. So at the age of 12, I had seen someone being shot, and then the shooter had come and actually stood with me and my friends until the police came and went. You know, So
he was pretending that
he was pretending
just,
he was one of us playing footy
okay.
and hadn't just previously discharged
And how did
a
you
firearm.
feel like?
I mean, they don't really have that. You don't learn that in your key stage one
What?
textbook. I mean, it's not there. You know,
It's
I
like
looked.
Two men in a playground, one gets shot. How many men left?
I mean,
It's
definitely
not
that
there?
wasn't what they were
It's
giving
not
us.
there. Okay, sorry.
So I didn't know how to process that. And then back to the situation.
How
of
old were you when you first saw a guy get shot?
12.
You were 12.
12, yeah. I mean, and then the same, when I was 12 again, later on that year, I was attacked by one of the young men in the area. Him and his older brother, actually, they both attacked me and punched me. And I went to go tell my father. You know, my father was like, listen, take me to the young man's house. I want to speak with his parents, because my father is that sort of character, you know. Went over there, had a good conversation, was gracious. And I thought, wow, this is how you solve problems. You know, my dad is onto something here. Sat down, after the conversation, we were making our way out. They were shaking my dad's hand, shook my hand, the father got his son to come and do the same for me. I mean, I felt really good. And then at the corner of my eye, the door was open and I could see to the staircase. And him and his older brother was at the staircase and they were miming, watch. Ooh. And I was like, it's not gonna end here, is it? I'm like, this continues. You know, and that was the worst sort of discontinues, because I was lured into a false sense of, you know, this is over, we're okay, you know, and we're not okay.
Let's psych that bit. Let's have a psych room for a bit. And let me just play psychiatrist. You sit on the sofa.
I feel like it is the right sofa.
I feel like it's that moment. You want to lie down or are you good?
I think if it was long enough, I would lie down.
Okay, let's have a psych moment, because I think that's such a cautionary tale. You know, we raise our kids according to our rule book of how we were raised. Like, my dad had this one thing when I was bullied as a kid. Bless my dad, love him, great Christian man now, but you know, when I got into a fight, never forget it, the kids called me the N-word, which was common because I grew up in white England, not black London, white England, like white. Started in Scotland, so we were the polar bears of the land. And so people call the N-word, it was a regular thing. So I'd never tell my parents until one day I thought it was a big enough deal to bring it to them, because this guy actually punched us as well. So this kid called us the N-word and he knocked us out. And I said, what did you do? In his Afro. I said, Dad, what do you want to say? He said, next time he messes with you, you tell him, go away, you naughty boy. You know I'm gonna get the living papulias beat out of me. But I will beat myself for saying that, number one, and then I'll let them finish the deal, because the rules change.
Totally.
And I think we are offended, and what leads us into wrong decisions is we're offended at the rules that didn't work. Do you know what I'm saying?
Deep,
it's like your dad is supposed to protect you. And they protect you by creating these rules for you.
Absolutely.
And then when they give you the rules and you go on the playground and you apply the rules and the rules don't work, it's like, do you know what?
Do you know what? You've actually hit it, because I learned that it don't work. Yeah. So my father would have me and my brother do that in the house. We would shake hands and it would actually broke a peace. You know, so I kind of thought, oh wow, this is similar. It's not my actual sibling, but I mean, this is the same sort of framework, you know, so it must work. Obviously it didn't work. I was shown that before I even left their house, you know. So the next time I was attacked, which actually was the following year, I was 13 years old at this time. There was a young man being bullied in the area by a friend of mine I was a big lad as well, as you can tell. I was quite big, always at the back of the classroom photos, you know. And this guy was also at the back with me, you know. And he was my good friend. And he went to a school that was a little bit rougher than mine. And he was basically walking through the area with another young man that went to his school too and was from the area, and who happened to be older than us. I just say, but you know, back then, the year above was quite a big deal.
Sure.
He was actually bullying the guy that was in the year above. And it was getting really, like, I felt so awkward, because that wasn't my twang, you know? And I was like, oh, come on, buddy, man. You should I didn't say buddy then, but hey. I mean, I was like, come on, buddy. You know, just leave him alone. Like, just spare him. Why are you doing that? And he ferociously snarled at me. And was like, who are you saying to allow it? Like, I said to basically allow him. He's like, it's none of your business, blah, 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 blah. And he struck me twice. You know, and I mean, I was like, this definitely isn't the format. You know, you're not, kindness is weakness here.
It is,
you know, so then I didn't go, kindness is weakness there. And I mean, it registered. Like, I mean, that was the final one. Like, I was tasting yet again blood in the mouth. You know, I've been socked in
Right.
the in the face, and there's blood in the mouth. And I'm like, all right, cool. I'm not gonna go tell my dad. So I had a cousin in the area who was involved in gangsterism now.
Okay.
He wasn't a spring chicken like myself, you know. He was acquainted with that way of living. So I went to him rather than going to my father. And his response was, who? I said, I don't know his name, but he's over here and I think he's still there. He put on a long coat, like a trench coat, grabbed the kitchen knife and said, take me to him. And I literally was taking him to him, and then my heart started to realize, like, I don't want him to actually find him, you know? So I started taking him in the wrong directions. So yeah, I think he went this way. No, he went straight on. Oh no, I think, and I literally just took him on a goose chase round, but something happened that day. I felt justice.
Right.
I felt
You felt powerful.
power.
Yeah.
I felt like, wow, this is how you do it.
Right.
You know, so I mean, I started to
Right.
I always say that my 12-year-old brain got to ticking and I made a logical decision. And
Very
that was,
logical.
if you can't beat them, you join them. I never had enough clout to join them.
Very logical.
So I created a gang of misfits and nobodies. We banded together and we fought and strove to become somebody in that.
Isn't that so interesting? Again, I don't want to psychoanalyze this scenario, but you know, for you it was gangsterism, for other people it's something else. And I think, you know, when you look at the template of what got you there, it's like the rules didn't work. And I think in the gang culture, there are two types of people. There are those who had parents, and there are those who didn't have parents. And so I often ask myself, for people like you, who I call the anomaly, the glitch, how did the glitch get into that lifestyle?
Yeah.
Of course, environment had something to do with it. You were in that kind of estate area that created that kind of environment, but also the fact that you were given these set of rules that you trusted the person who gave them to you, and nothing to besmirch the person who gave them to you, but the rules just didn't work.
No.
And I always say this to parents, like rules have never served anyone but the rule breaker. You look at all of the most successful people in the world.
Yeah.
They broke the rules.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking Bill Gates. The rule is go to school, go to university.
Yeah.
He broke the rule. You're talking about Usain Bolt, fastest man alive. He found a rule worth breaking and he broke it. And so it's almost like we got to teach our kids, if you want to succeed, find a rule worth breaking and break it.
I mean, Warren Buffett stated that when everyone's running to it, run the rules, run from it.
Wow.
And when everyone's running from it, run to it.
Wow.
So in some way, and that was his investment
Mindset.
advice, you know, so I mean, it does ring true.
Huh.
You know, so I mean, these days I tend to ask for forgiveness, not permission. You know, so here we go.
So tell us, what is gangsterism?
What is gangsterism? I mean, it is a loose term, first of all. You know, the spectrum is vast. If we're asking what was my gangsterism, heavy street level gang activity.
Okay.
So inner city, council estate orientated, I mean, post-Cold Wars, if you want to call it that.
Was it not that?
Pardon me?
Was it not that?
Was it not that?
Was it not post-Cold War?
Do you know
was
what?
It bigger?
It started that way, and obviously, but you can have problems within your postcode. I had several I was at loggerheads with young men that shared the same postcode as me.
Okay.
SW9 didn't mean nothing. It just meant we're all from Brixton. You know, but civil war happens, all the rest of it. So yeah, you can have problems. Like if things don't work out right, you can have problems with someone that was in your gang. You know, it can get there.
And was the goal ever to leave the estate, or was the goal just to be the best estate of the estates?
I mean, it was a part of the language that, yes,
One day I'm gonna get
one
out,
day
yeah.
to get out. Like there is an end game. However, on further scrutiny, I believe that was more script
Right.
than genuine intention.
Okay.
You know, it was more like, oh yeah, I need to work hard and get out of this, you know, but I didn't see real kind of moves towards getting out of it.
So what was the average real goal then of a gang person or leader? What?
I mean, it's different. It's like, why does someone subscribe to the gym? Someone does it for community, someone does it because someone else done it, someone else does it because they want to lose weight, someone else done it because they want to build muscle. I mean,
What was
literally.
it for you?
For me, it was immunity, offering immunity to those I cared about also, and power, for sure.
In which order?
Say that again?
In which order?
Oh, power brings immunity, so I'll say power than immunity.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. And that makes sense, I guess, because of the way you were hammered on.
Yeah,
You got a taste of that with your friend or your cousin, family
Yeah.
member who carried the knife, and all of
Uh-huh.
a sudden it's like, wow, you got a taste
absolutely.
of this is what
Do
power
you know
feels
what is,
like.
I saw brutality is an expression of a sort of power.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I actually witnessed it. When I say I saw someone being shot when I was 12 years old, that situation was actually traumatic and romantic. Because here we are experiencing a level of powerlessness. You know, can't afford this, can't afford that. My mother gets on the phone to someone that's indigenous from the UK. I can tell she puts in her best, you know, keep me here accent, you know, I'm one of you voices. You know, the whole kind of texture is to be seen and not heard, you know. So when I'm seeing him with such an audacity, you know, to not just discharge a firearm, but then to brazenly kind of pose as one of us until the police came and literally told the police, asked us questions. And he said, yeah, I saw them and they ran that way. You know, I mean, there was something quite romantic about it. I was like, wow. And being from a place of hopelessness and powerlessness, it was attractive. More traumatic then than attractive. That's fair enough to say. But I mean, yeah, the seed was sown. And then life just does what it does. Fertilizer was added quite regularly, you know, and it did. I had this vision of becoming the most influential or the most recognized or the most popular street level gang member in London. And I did that. You know, I got to that point, and that was a vision. And I wanted it because of what I deemed to be the byproducts of it, which was again the immunity,
Right.
the power, the influence,
Right.
you know, and the self-esteem, you know.
And you did actually become
Yeah,
that.
for sure.
Well, when did you realize you reached that?
Ooh, interesting question. I would say, so as I said, I went from being a victim, like I was a clear victim, you know, in my area. That was happening regularly, as I said. Then I started to climb up and kind of work the works. And there was this one day where I left my bike on a court, which is like part of the estate, and everyone was hanging out there. And I left my bike quickly just to kind of just run across the road quickly and meet some clientele, you know. And I didn't want to go on the bike because it weren't necessary. I just wanted to go on foot quickly, get it done. And as I made my way over there, I ended up spending a lot longer than I anticipated, and even forgot I had left my bike there. Then I was like, blimmin' heck, my bike, and it was a good bike, you know. I had paid someone that was had certain habits, and they had acquired it, you know. That's just what the ends does, you know. So it was a really good bike, you know. But I definitely didn't buy it for the RRP. Yeah. So I've kind of just dawned on me, this bike, you know, was vulnerable. Go back and get the bike.
Right.
And I've jogged over, and I've seen that the whole space has been cleared. No one is there, and I'm like, oh, because what happens is someone else that has more kind of status can just pick up the bike and ride it.
Right.
And that's their bike now. You know, they wouldn't take it off me physically no more. I had worked past that point.
Right.
I'm not getting socked in the face no more for the bike. But if I had left it, they can pick it up and go with it. And so I kind of had my head down thinking, you know, they've gone with the bike. And I'm looking, and obviously there's a small bit of wall, so I can't see over it. I've got to the slope and I'm going up, and I look, and I'm like, that looks like the tire of my bike. It looks like the bike wheel. So I jogged up and I'm like, it's my bike.
It's still there.
And I was like, that was the day it dawned on me. Because there was enough characters on that block at that time, and I'd left it for long enough that, yeah.
Wow.
So then I realized, I'm up there, you know? So that was initially, and then, I mean, there's lots of other things. Then I took it musically. And because my group had a lot of clout in South London on a gang stage, I was the most popular street level rapper, you know, in London. You know, so I was getting lots of hits on like MySpace and things like that. So people was tuned in. I would walk into a party, and as I'm walking in, everyone's whispering, there's locks, there's locks, there's locks. You know, everyone it changes when I enter, you know, so that stuff there kind of affirmed that we were those people.
So fast forward, and I know we've already shared the story about how you kind of got impacted by the power of God in Pastor Mimi's church, and you have this phenomenal day with this opposing gang. We've already kind of spoken about that, where God kind of puts this invisible cloak on you, and people trying to kill you can't find you even though you're right in their face. And you think at first they're disrespecting you.
Absolutely.
Throw a bottle, the bottle touched the back of the guy's leg, but he still didn't feel it. It's like God made you, the bottle you threw, everything invisible, and then you're radically transformed by God, and you are who you are now. Did you ever miss the power?
Oh, absolutely.
So do you still ever think back about that?
It's not this is where it's, so human beings have quite clear universal needs, you know, belonging, you know, identity, you know, community contribution. And in an illegitimate way, gangsterism tends to all of those. You contribute to your community, your group, you have an identity, you know, you have meaningful relationships, you know, I mean, it brings in terms of financially, you know, so it ticks all the boxes. So it's not the actual deeds itself, you know, again, also with the adrenaline aspect of it, like I say, like life is a lot more like straightforward these days, you know, like I actually didn't realize I could acknowledge I was addicted to cannabis. I could acknowledge I was addicted to sex. I could acknowledge I was addicted to violence, but I didn't realize I was addicted to adrenaline. I didn't see that addiction, you know, because it's just part and parcel of my life was leaving the house and there being some uncertainty on whether I'll make it home. You know, so I just got used to that kind of
living on the edge.
You know, so yeah, before I realized it, that was a vacuum. But again, when we denounced gangsterism, the vacuum wasn't so evident because we're still in the mix. You know, we're trying to help and change and save other young men's lives. You know, I was still being discharged. You know, I've been shot at twice, no, 3 times after denouncing gangsterism. One time outside my pastor's house, and the bullet went through her front door while she was in the kitchen. I mean, like, so it still had that twang to it, but then it started to I realized when I've been self-employed for a long time. I've only just now launched my own company, but prior to that I was living essentially check to check, and these were decent checks, you know, because I had been able by God's grace to forge a unique kind of route for myself. However, I realized I would wait for the money to go low before I'll go again. It was almost as if I liked the fact that I had to wait to kill to eat.
Right.
You know, I needed to kind of create that on the edge and then, you know, get to it, that challenge. So, I mean, it does surface in certain ways. And a lot of it is just a lot of neurological pathways that have, I mean, these associations are almost automatic for me, you know, in terms of like the PTSD element of things. Like I still, if I see a group of 20 or so young men and they're bunched together, I automatically kind of posture in a certain way. If I hear a loud bang, I tend to run at it. You know, I kind of lose my temper straight away, actually. Inwardly, I'm composed. You won't see nothing. So if that door just slammed for no reason, you know, there was a huge draft, I mean, just picked up from nowhere and it hit, I would obviously keep how I am, but inside, like there will be a chemical combustion, you know? So, I mean, these bits are still here. But other than that, I mean, there was no peace there, like the peace I experience now. So for that, I am grateful. But again, I am a real person. There's no way you can compare the adrenaline and the rush of what was to now. I mean, they are vast worlds apart. I mean, I was an outlaw. I was living like a bandit. You know, even if I was attacked, my first point of call was not to call the police. Even if I was there bleeding, you know, it would be to call my comrades and then eventually get round to calling the police. You know, we policed ourselves, and with that comes a certain, you know, it's just a certain way. It's just a fabric. Yeah.
And so here you are now, and you are a leader of a family. You have your own kid, your wife, your dog. Which,
I do.
And and you are now like an influencer in some of the most dramatically polarizing ways I've probably ever witnessed a person swing pendulum. You've gone from leading a gang in London to be one of the most influential. So now you're leading among the Bransons, the royal family, the who's who of the zoo in the music world and in the business world. When did that convergence start to take place, and how was that like for you? What was the point where you're like, to borrow a word from you, blooming heck, I'm now like here with these people, like, and how did that happen?
Yeah, you know what? So I heard from God. I heard from God first through Reverend Mimi. She made a statement to me, and it ricocheted daily in my mind, my heart, and it was on the tip of my tongue almost always. And I was saying it to myself, is why have Brixton when you can have Britain? And I don't know whether it was the B and the B, but I mean, it was catchy and it caught me. It caught me, you know, and why it caught me is because I was actually nobody. I was literally nobody, you know. That cousin that I was talking of, he wasn't that high up in the gang, and he got arrested and sentenced to about 7 years in prison. So I didn't have his affiliation. You know, my older brother wasn't involved. He actually had his own stint a bit later on, but I mean, during the time I was basically on my own technically, you know. So I had this vision of becoming X in this underworld, and I became X in that underworld. So when she's saying, why have Brixton when you can have Britain, it almost felt as if, all right, cool. The channel in some ways existed but didn't exist, you know, but I forged that path. So I was like, maybe I could forge it, you know, to Britain. And why it really rang true is because, as I said, at my core, I wanted to help. When I was recruiting young men to join my gang, I thought I was liberating them. I mean, I literally believed I was giving them a better life, you know. So I felt like if I was able to forge a path in Britain, I'll be able to give those that are coming from communities similar to mine and backgrounds similar to mine and marginalized for whatever reason. You know, it doesn't have to be gangsterism, but I felt as if I would be able to help them also. you know. So I was like, I did it here, I'll do it there, you know. But I mean, it sounds like, what do you mean you did it here, you did it there? But I just started kind of saying, okay, I'll do it. And I started to hear from God a little bit more.
I think I always like to kind of say that there are prophets before there are born agains. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, yeah.
Like,
break that down.
Jeremiah wasn't born again.
Uh-huh.
And yet he wasn't even born when God made him a prophet. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
It was part of his hardwiring.
Uh-huh.
Moses was a deliverer before he was a deliverer. He's killing things that when people say, well, God led him for years through a thing because God was trying to purify him from murder, but God killed way more Egyptians than the one he buried in the sand. So there's, I think there's a hardwiring before you're born again, and what born again does is it just purifies what was always on the inside of you.
I mean, I do have to say that the changes that people, I mean, you can't have known me then and not know that God has done something. I am not the same person. No. But I am the same person. Like, I really am the same person. There is like that hardwiring. Yeah. It existed then, it exists now. It was an asset then, it's an asset now. You know, so I'm like a dog with a bone when it comes to certain things, and especially when God tells me, you know. And I mean, he just kind of stimulated it by making me see certain things, dreamt me certain dreams, had random people come and say certain things to me, and I just believed them, you know. And I am someone that don't need to know how. How doesn't really bother me, you know. So that's, if I'm gonna say what is my edge on a lot of people, it's I don't get bogged down with the how. Wow. I never asked God how. I never asked him, ever. He gave me some fantastic visions that, I mean, made no sense. I mean, it was nonsensical to say that, yep, you're gonna go from here to there. Yeah. But I didn't say how, I just said, okay. And I just walked. I had no route. Wow. I mean, I started just doing little things like, I knew that I had to increase my own capacity, you know, because I had become someone in that community to be able to have the standing I had in that community. So I realized that people don't get what they want, they get what they are. So I was like, you know what? I am gonna have to become more for the more. And that's when my personal development kicked off.
People don't get what they want, they get what they are.
Absolutely. Wow. People want a lot of things, you know? So I just started, I mean, like a dog with a bone, I honed in on increasing my own market value, increasing my my ability to contribute, you know, and I honed in on what I could see was my gifts already, which was relational, which was being able to communicate, you know, which was being able to be in terms of blue sky thinking, you know, which was also being able to mobilize. And I just honed in on those skills and didn't hone in on any of my weaknesses, you know, focused on that. Learned 10 new words a day to change my lingual syntax, read a book a week for about 3 years. And I was actually, and people will have their kind of takes on it, and I'm not saying it in any kind of like religious kind of, ooh, like God will get you way, but I was celibate for 3.5 years. And for me, I always kind of feel that that was a part of it. You know, it was just what you were seeing there was focus. And I had that focus, you know, and a big thing that gave me notoriety on a street level was I was not the most violent, I didn't have the most money, but I was always the most courageous. Wow. Always. There was never a time, my friends, if any of them is watching this now, no one will bat an eyelid to say, oh, maybe someone else was a little bit more courageous. No one was more courageous to me. And that was my difference, you know, so not that I was without fear, I was always afraid, you know, but I mean, I knew what to do with fear. I knew where to put it. You know, I treated it like an object. You know, I could either put it on my head and then it would sit on me, or I can put it in my pocket, or I can put it down and come back for it later on. You know, so more time I'll just put it down, do what I need to do, and then come back for it. You know, and it was a similar thing. I realized that fortune did favor the brave. You know, I started to make some moves, and obviously I know God amplified it, absolutely, you know. But I just had an audacity, the same audacity I had to tell a young man that hated me and had journeyed over to my area with his firearm on his waist to come and inflict harm to me. And I told him certain not so nice things about his mother, you know, like while I am unarmed and he is armed, was the same audacity I had to send Ian Duncan Smith the first email I did, the head of the Rothschild Bank UK Europe, the first email I did.
You should talk to us about these things,
Yeah.
because I mean, I need to dissect this. Here you are.
Yeah.
You're Karl, leader of a gang of mostly black London kids.
Yeah.
Speaking a language that is mostly black culture centric.
Absolutely colloquial.
And now you are in a world where the ability to articulate the serendipity of the English language with oratorical finesse is a powerful weapon.
Absolutely.
And you have to change your language, your style, your
Totally.
so how did you make that switch? Was it a God thing? Did you make the switch? Or did they all just like, Karl, yo, what's up, man? And try to, you know, what up, player? You know, what was that?
You know,
I need to know. I need to be a fly on the wall in a room. Tell me the first room you stepped into where you had a blooming heck Karl moment and it was like, oh, I'm with the who's who of the zoo. And what did you do when you stepped into that place?
Do you know what?
Give us one, just one walk back story, or your first one.
Oh, the first one. I mean, there's been so many.
Right.
I have been the alien in the room more times than most will in a lifetime. That I had to get comfortable being the only one.
And when you say the only one, do you mean the only
one?
black?
Racially,
Yeah.
socially, economically. I mean, in terms of even where we went to study, like, I mean, everything.
Right.
I mean, the furthest thing from what they are familiar with. I was always the unfamiliar, stepping into the unfamiliar.
So give us I just need one story of you, Karl, as we knew you.
Yeah.
I just need
sorry.
one story. He's getting excited. That's why. Let's have him move back. I just need one story from you, Karl, as we knew you, to you, Karl, as you are. What would give us that room you stepped into? How old were you? What was that? What was going through your mind? How did it happen? Was it a room you stepped in? Was it someone called you? When was the first tipping point moment for you?
No. I mean, do you know why it is so difficult? Because I have had okay, let me pick one.
Pick one.
All right, sweet. So, London riots has happened.
Okay.
Prior to riots, was campaigning with Pastor Mimi and our group, essentially to have a place to fellowship and also a base to run our operations, because we're doing a lot of gang mediation work within the community, which was acknowledged to be having an effect. As I said, by the Lambeth Council. Okay. As I said, Miteswood Estate was statistically the second worst estate in London. Okay. And by her intervention work with us, the crime halved. 50% drop. So there was some attention. It was like, what has happened here for there to be a 50% decrease in crime? You know, not only she had picked me up and a couple others. That was the 50%. You know? So anyway, literally, now, I was now speaking at the town hall, Lambeth Town Hall. Okay. And I was speaking purely through the group's nomination. So we go there, we have our petition, and then Pastor Mimi and the rest will kind of nudge me and say, yeah, Karl should speak. Because I kind of had that sort of, way about me, but I definitely weren't ready to and didn't want to. But I was like, for the sake, for the cause, I will do it. I summoned courage. I spoke and I told them about themselves, ourselves, and what we need to do. And they would usually hear me and go, that was brilliant. And then Theresa May, she's actually passed on now. Dame Theresa, no, sorry, Theresa May, sorry. Tessa Zhao.
I was
Tessa
like, breaking
Zhao.
news,
Not Theresa May,
May's
not
passed on.
Theresa May. Tessa Zhao. She was a godsend.
Okay.
She heard me speak on a few occasions.
And who's she,
then she was the MP for Dulwich.
Okay.
And then she's Dame Tessa Zhao now. She's just an active person politically, you know? And she basically told me whatever room she's in, I must be in. And whenever she has an opportunity to speak, I must follow. That was her words. She was like, the world needs to hear you. So I literally was like, okay, didn't know how serious she was. And she just called my phone and asked me to come and give a talk, you know, and it was alongside David Miliband. And he came, he shared, and then I came and I shared. And the room was moved by what I had to say. I just spoke from the heart about the situation that was going on.
And how did you feel? Like, what was the kind of the social bearings of the?
That room wasn't so difficult for me.
Okay.
It was half of the community, which I know very well.
Okay.
And the other half was more of change agents, politicians, and the rest of it. You know, so it was the fact that it was feeling quite naked, having to stand up in front of all of them and articulate myself. But I mean, once I had got that down, I began to build confidence and momentum with it. But I mean, it went from that sort of room to other rooms that is a lot less kind of accommodating. Not because intentionally. For example, the Viscountess Eliza Pearson. I was invited to be the keynote speaker at a dinner she was holding.
Right.
And as you can imagine, she's a Viscountess. I mean, the room, like Damien Hirst was in the room, others, I mean, it was filled with prolific kind of 1%ers, if you want to put it that way. And yeah, I mean, to stand up and speak, and forget to even, speaking is not it, just to turn up.
Yeah.
You know, to walk down the driveway, like literally you shouldn't walk down these driveways, you should drive. But yeah, it's a long way. Walking down this driveway, entering this house, I mean, being surrounded by those who speak a totally different language, totally different upbringing. I mean, it was intimidating. However, I took courage. You know, I realized that something happened. God allowed the blender that was the streets to do something to me. There is something quite equalizing about, I mean, I just don't want people not to like me. There's something quite equalizing about violence.
Right.
You can be a politician, a billionaire, someone that's homeless, white, black, fat, tall, short, male, female, I mean anyone, and if you get hit in a certain way, you go down. I mean, the streets show you that.
It's true.
You know, you really see that everyone is human.
Everyone can get knocked
You know,
down,
everyone
yeah.
can get knocked down, you know?
Right.
So I had that awareness, and then I also put them in a metric of my own. You know, everyone classifies and puts things in certain bands, you know, human beings are just those sort of creatures, you know. I would compare them to God. I'd be like, I was just with God. Literally this morning, literally 10 minutes in the car on the way here, having a full-on conversation with him. I was not shy. I was stating what I was stating. I was speaking my mind. I had the confidence to sit up. So why am I going to come in here and cower, you know, with the creation? When me and the creator are so chummy,
Come on.
you know, so I would go in there with that. Sometimes it wouldn't work. I would walk into a hall, and that's the only way to call it. The banquet house. If you know the banqueting house, it's a listed building where kings would take, you know, their extracurricular, the extracurricular women in their lives, and after their hunt, you know, and have a good time. And I mean, I would walk into these halls, they would be in an event, and I would sometimes walk through. There was this one time, I walked through, tried to greet people, was met with what I called ice, Yeah, it didn't work, felt like an imposter, felt like, why am I here? I just kept on walking, got through to the other end, walked out to where I saw the chef having a cigarette, and literally stood with him for about half an hour. And then the staff was coming in and out, and they looked a lot like me, and a lot of them came from my sort of background in terms of socio-economic. So I felt a lot more comfortable with them, was with them kind of having conversations, chilling, like I'm not going back in there maybe, I might go home. Phoned my friend Mike's, who's my brother as well, he's Pastor Mimi's son. And I told him what was happening, and he basically said, my man, like, I mean, we were with God this morning, you know? So, I mean, I know you, like, I've known you for courage. He was also part of the gang that I was in previously, and he was like, you've never been like, what, you scared of them? And I was like, no, I'm not scared of them, then listen, go back in then. So I just went back in, and from that day, I mean, if you can handle that room, you can handle any room, you know, so yeah.
We only got a few more minutes left, so I just gotta ask you some things, probably more to present world things. I mean, if anyone should let the stereotype of blackness, if there's such a thing, there's an archetype of blackness, at least among many, but if anyone should let it be a stigma to them, it should have been you. But you've never let it be that. You've always been what I would call ambidextrous. You call a politician, very fluid, very able to be a chameleon among men, not deceptively, but just all things to all people.
Absolutely.
Considering today's climate where people, it's either you're this or you're not. You're black or you're white. You're not an individual, you're a group, you're a cohort, you're an archetype. Like, what do you feel like in this environment we're in right now with, you know, with you mingling in so many different groups and meeting so many different people, from aristocrats in the royal house to businessmen to politicians to lobbying figures? Like, how do you feel about the current climate that we find ourselves in today? And if you were in front of a young kind of black guy who is very much defined by their blackness and feels a victim, which you've clearly you've been a victim, but you've never let yourself stay there.
Yeah.
What would you say to that kind of person?
That light shines best when it's darkest. I understood that because of my narrative, I was barred from certain places. You know, that's what disqualified me. But I was able to see that because of my narrative, I am qualified to be there. So, for example, oh, you're a gang leader. You've been a gang leader. You know, yes, I know how to lead. You know, absolutely. Like, to say the black experience and the white experience on the rock we call Earth at this present moment is the same experience would be a lie. You know, but what has been granted to me is an undertone of resilience that maybe my white counterpart hasn't had any need to develop.
Right.
So, I mean, I have been in training to be able to take resistance.
Sure.
You know, so I'm like, ultimately, if you take it and kind of spin it on its head, you know, it can have happened for you rather than to you.
Sure.
You know, so that is what took me from the place of being a victim. I'm like, it was for my, be it unconventional development. I saw everything as helping to inform basically a more potent me, you know, so someone wouldn't be able to find the good in losing a loved one. You know, I was able to draw from that and say, because I've lost them, I understand the fragility of life and that I need to crack on, essentially. You know, someone would say, oh, because I was derailed and didn't get my GCSEs, you know, like I flunked. And I was like, I'm actually left with a clean slate, you know, where I'm able to now I took agency. I always focused on my own personal agency and my ability to do what I am doing or what I want to do, you know.
But and I'm playing devil's advocate here, somebody
go for
looking at you would say, well done, Karl, you took agency. Good for you. But not all of us can. I mean, the idea of, and the thought of...
Is that true? That not everyone can or that not everyone will?
Well, it's definitely a sentiment. A sentiment of a lot of people who feel a victim of the system. And I don't want to put that in air quotes because I feel that would be condescending. I think that there are some people who feel like they have been maltreated by a system and that somehow they are owed by the system. When you're owed by a system, the worst thing you can do when a system owes you is not walk around with a limp.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if you're in a car crash and you want good compensation, you come in with the neck brace, you look like you've had whiplash like the lawyer told you to, you go get the medical checkup. So for a lot of people, there's currency in wearing the neck brace of where they came from.
Not if they know the intention of the system. The system is not there to make anyone thrive. That's not what the system exists for.
By anyone, you mean of any kind?
I mean, like, if we're talking about the governmental kind of system, it is to create standardized citizens. I mean, it's not there to, you know, absolutely.
Get a job,
I mean,
feed my economy.
that is the fuel, you know, that's needed to go into that tank, you know. So, I mean, it doesn't really serve you for that limp. I would say rather than kind of limping for the compensation, if you understand that there is hostility in this environment, wild animals, when they're in the wild, if you see a wild animal limp, it means they're really in pain. Because they don't want to limp to show the vulnerability.
Exactly.
You know, so for me, it's you just have to kind of really know your environment. Is it one that is going to show you mercy and grant you favor because you are limping, or you're gonna have to feign strength in order to be able to get access? And I would say it's the latter, to feign it, you know. And I wouldn't even say that they perceive that the system has been hostile or that they have been assaulted in some way. I will say that they have been. That's just the reality. But then you can't then say I'm not in that category because I am black. You know, I have come from social housing. You know, I was son of illegal immigrants. You know, like, I mean, all of these things were kind of stacked against me. But the reality is I took agency, and I'm not saying that I haven't got a veritable lottery ticket win. I do not discount grace. You know, grace has been active in my life. I shouldn't have even had the chance to have a second chance. I know that, you know, so I'm not talking about that. I'm not saying we're all going to be on the friends and family list at Kensington Palace. That's not what I'm advocating, you know, but I am saying that you can make the best out of your situation if you think the best in your situation, you know. So instead of it being that it has happened to you, acknowledge that this actually has happened for you. And I mean, just that one tint on the lens changes everything, you know, because now, like, I mean, I have lost a contract, lost a this, lost a that. And I'm like, yeah, this is clearly a setback. But then I'm like, all right, this has happened for me. So this setback must be a setup for a comeback in a greater way. You know, like, I mean, I saw the pain that was happening with, like, let's say, post George Floyd and his online execution. And I know in terms of the culture, pop culture, popular culture, it's been led by America for years. So to say that that's not a global consensus, you would be, I mean, you'd have to be living under a rock. I'm not saying that black people aren't seen at the lowest. Like, that's just a reality, you know, even by themselves. Some of them see themselves that way, you know. But what I am saying is that if you acknowledge that literally it does kind of give an opening in a mercenary way at the moment, there are more kind of eyes on what the black community wants to do. There is more reason to invest in them currently because of the hardships. You know, so I'm like, everything can be deemed to be happening for us. You know, George Floyd, what happened to him was tragic. His daughter won't have the father. I mean, it's a mess. However, off of that suffering, you know, I'm not saying there's consolation. No, I won't go that far, but I'll say that there's definitely an opening for an opportunity to be seized, you know, and I think there's a lot of people seizing that opportunity. I am in a situation currently, I haven't really gone public with my new appointment, obviously you're aware of, that if it wasn't all the scenarios and situations that was happening, I, at my age and coming from my background and even what I have in my CV, I would not be in that situation, in that position, but here I am, because light shines brightest when it is darkest.
Final question, got to ask you this. So, you know, your goal before was power. You achieved it. And then now you are who you are now. What's the goal?
Oh, wow, you can't do that.
I just did.
You definitely can't do that. I mean, do you know what? It's power. It's still the goal. You know? It's still the goal. I mean, do you know what? And it sounds like, this is what I'm saying, there's such stigmas with certain things. You hear that, you're like, power? Why would you want power? Yeah. But I mean, no one wants Napa, you know? Yeah. Like, if the power's out, like, you want the power on, you know? Like, if your battery's dead, you want it powered on, you know? If the television ain't, you want power. Yeah. Power is not a bad thing. Power is the ability to influence. Yeah. And I mean, personally, I like that. Power is the ability to influence. Absolutely. Oh, on that very wonderful, honest note, Karl Lokko, thank you so much for joining us. Pleasure. This has been a refreshing, calm, collected conversation. Guys, I know we were late starting, so please help us by hitting the share button and getting this out to as many people as possible. This will be posted on the Rig Nation app later, but for now it will be public for a couple of days, but we're taking it off. So make sure you download the Rig Nation app. Be sure to check us out. God bless you. We'll see you next time. Oh, before we go, where can we find you? You can find me on IG, Instagram at Karl _LOKKO, Lokko. Karl _Lokko. And Karl with a K. Where else can we find you? I mean, that's where I'm active. That's where he's at. So and even they're not too active, but I'm active enough. Karl _Lokko. Check it out on Instagram. Be sure to follow him. Send him, not direct message. You want a public one. Put a comment under one of his posts and just say how blessed you were about what you heard and learned. God bless you. Till next time, you've been watching Wow, Get Rigged.